The real reason they don't want to pay you more for your time. Salute and welcome, drivers. Truckers don't need to work harder. We have already built the nation. We already do enough of that. What we need is a system that honors the sweat of the working man. Another commenter also said on a post to my community wall, said deregulation is the biggest problem here. If the job is worth $20, they want to pay you only $10 for it. Thank you to Jarrett for making that. Folks, that's the heart of today's story. And it's not just about policy. It's about principle. The FMCSA says their latest pilot program is about testing flexibility. But what it really tests is your patience and maybe even your paycheck. So stick around, because today we're peeling back the lab coat on this so-called experiment to find out what's really benefiting, who's really benefiting, and who's being tested, and why drivers across America are saying loud and clear, we are not lab rats. We are the backbone of this country. You're watching Truckin Headlines, the front page of the Truth in Broadcasting is coming up. Greetings, truck lovers and truth seekers and hard-working patriots from all across the United States of trucking. I'm BossMan. This is Truckin Headlines. Another update to prove truckers don't need more lab tests. We need more respect for the sweat equity and what it takes to keep this country moving. So stay with me, because right here, we don't just run experiments. We run America. This is Truckin City Media. We're fueled by faith, sanctioned by God, and dedicated to make trucking great again. Welcome, y'all. Tell others about us. Go down below, like this video. If you're so inclined, consider subscribing or joining the force and helping us spread the word. So let's go to the front page of what I like to call the FMCSA's big experiment. Recently, FreightWaves ran a headline. Said truck drivers to feds, more money, not more hours. The story's hard to miss, but what it's merely more telling us is what's more telling is the tone of how the editor frames the story. It'll be linked in the show notes below. It's cast as if drivers are complaining about stability or resisting efficiency. But if you dig beneath that, the tilt is clear. It suggests Washington is doing us a favor by experimenting with hours. So let me walk you through what the pilot program they're talking about really is, who designed it, and then we'll talk about what it really treats like test subjects. The FMCSA is reviving pilot programs intended to loosen some hours of service restrictions in limited ways. One proposal is called the split duty period. It would allow drivers to pause their 14-hour clock or driving window for a break period between 30 minutes and up to about 3 hours, effectively giving them flexibility to reset part of the clock. On paper, it's framed as a win. Carriers get more unusable time. Drivers get flexibility to rest, and of course, everyone's happier, right? But here's the catch. This flexibility comes at the cost of stretching your workday. While the controller never promises you'll see a penny more for it. That's the design. Extension without compensation. It's tested under experiment conditions as though the human behind the wheel is just another data point. Who wants to work for 19 hours when all you get paid is for 14, right? Could conceivably happen. You never know. So here's where the cynicism kicks in, all right? Who's running this test, right? Washington regulators. Who's being measured? You and me. The driver population of the trucking industry. And who profits? Well, it's the carriers mainly. And I'll deposit maybe even the mega carriers. Those who wouldn't notice a dime here or there, one way or the other. When the editor at FreightWaves frames this piece, he couches the driver pushback as resistance to innovation. But innovation, well, it's not valid if it increases your burden without increasing your reward. By the way, if you agree with me or have any different take, give us a call here on a studio line while we're live, 860-785-3547. 860-785-3547. Certainly welcome your take. Be interested to know what you think. The editor of the story says some truckers are just rejecting the pilot program to extend the daily driving window, arguing that the real problem is corporate-driven unpaid time. Let me know if you agree with that. That's not just coverage. That's a lean point of view. It subtly tries to paint drivers as complaining about change rather than demanding fairness. Personally, I think we need to be paid more adequately for the time we work. After all, would you trade more hours for more pay? Or should Washington finally pay for the hours you've already given away? You guys made some points in the community post. Keep weighing in. Pin down below here in the chat your thoughts. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are. Sterling Wheels says, after 5 years of experience, pay odometer miles. I completely agree with that. And welcome to the show, Sterling. I appreciate you joining me. So again, to my earlier question, would you trade more hours for more pay, or should Washington finally pay for the hours you're already giving away? Let us know your thoughts if you're watching. Call our studio, 860-785-3547. On paper, they call it a pilot program. In practice, it looks like a whole lot of a Trojan horse. Stick around to find out why I say that coming up in the rest of the story. First, what's the tipping point? What thing to you must change? Laws, norms, enforcement for time paying to become a non-negotiable in trucking? What has to happen? I mean, think it through. We already work more hours than what our hours of service allow us to. Even though we're supposed to be off duty, even though we're supposed to legally say when we're off duty, sleeper, birth, all that. Think about it. You're in a truck 24/7. You're doing something, whether you're asleep or whether you're awake drinking coffee. How many of you feel like the system's rigged against you? This Trojan horse I spoke of is shiny language at the gate. And once it's wheeled inside the yard, out pops a platoon of flexibility that stretches your day without stretching your paycheck. My friends, let's get on to the rest of the story. Folks, here's the truth they won't package in a press release. This isn't about innovation. It's about extraction. We're told extra discretion will make life easier. Okay? For who? I'd like to know. Do you know? Put in the comments below. For carriers who can milk your available time like it's free diesel. How about for brokers who love longer clock because it papers over their inefficiencies? For planners who can push detentions and delays onto the only person in the chain who doesn't get paid for waiting, which is you. Think about it. How many times you've been sitting someplace and you've got to give 2 hours of your time for what? Free. That's not your fault. Now, based on experience, most of us see real opportunity somewhere else. Use the momentum of recent pushes in policy and public attention as an opportunity to force the market to equalize and bring pay standards right along with it. All the stuff about, you know, non-domicile CDLs, 200,000 people possibly being sidelined. I say leave things alone. I say let the market dictate what we're worth. We're already letting big wigs and corporate suits and ties dictate what we need to do and what we're worth and what we should be paid. I say let the market say that. Detention time, pay it. Non-driving work, pay it. If the system wants more utilization, then utilize the wallet. Come off some cash and pay for the whole job, not just the rolling miles. Don't get me wrong, hours of service adjustments they're talking about are tools, and if used correctly, they're necessary tools. There's nothing wrong with utilization and efficiency. Whether shippers, chaos, breakdowns, real life, weather, you name it, real life doesn't run on perfect stopwatches. Smart flexibility can help a driver manage the day, but tools are not a blank check. Tools are not a substitute for corporate pocket pool. And yes, to coin them on a phrase. You don't fix broken pay by stretching a human being thinner. You fix it by aligning time with money and the risk and reward associated with it. And welcome Soul to the broadcast. Soul says they should pay for hours on the clock. Yes, ma'am, I agree. Pay has been one of the things that only the recent couple decades we had to really fight for uncontrollably. Fate, I've never not received detention pay. I book loads with time in and get better at booking loads. Yes, I agree. We are the rare few. There are those that have hidden contingencies in their broker clauses and don't realize what they're getting into until after they've signed that rate con and sent it back. And by that time, it's too late. So here's your take home from this. Stop examining what you're being told and what you're being sold, because the brochure says flexibility, but the invoice reads billable hours for the big lab experiment. If they want to run a test, fine. I get it. Start by compensating the subjects. Pay by the hour, pay by the clock, and pay while you're at the dock. Pay for securement. Pay for the clock you burn solving someone else's logistics issues. Then come talk to us about pilots. Sol goes on to say, even if the shipper is late or takes a driver's time. And a lot of times, you don't find out about that stuff until after you've documented it and sent it in. Fate goes on to say, that's nobody's fault except for the person agreeing to load. Yes, and that's a lot of the problem. A lot of the broker transparency argument of the day is around those hidden clauses and those hidden things. People don't tend to want to engage, but they want to use it as a reason not to pay. So until we smarten up and we figure out things, hours of service are fine. Everything going as a collective works, but you've got to know what you're doing, what you're getting involved in. So if I take nothing away from this, to advise you, look at the rate cons, look at your contracts, make sure you're getting paid what you're worth. Because I don't care what kind of lab experiment FMCSA or DOT wants to run on you, as long as you're sitting there with no idea what you're eligibility paid for, it don't do no good to give us more flexibility, because we're just going to burn it up on the dock anyway. So drop in the comments. Tell me, what's the one line item you would force into every carrier contract right now? Detention pay, hourly floor, guaranteed layover. If you were in control of the conversation, if you had more control of your money than you do now, instead of this hours of service thing, like this FreightWaves article talks about, what would you do? How does paying for time instead of output shift the balance of power between you and everybody in control of what you do? Let me know. Tell me in the comments. Fate says, I don't want to get paid by the hour. I was paid 5 grand for only truly working a 20-hour time frame over 4 days. Well, every contract's different. When I say by the hour, I don't mean by the 70-hour clock. When I say by the hour, if I'm in a detention situation, I don't want to be sitting there for 6 and only get paid for 4. I want to get paid for the 6 hours. And I'm sure the average driver watching this broadcast, news update, is probably thinking similar. Stop giving us excuses why not to pay us and start utilizing the mechanics in front of you to pay us what we're worth. Fade, I'll tell you, honestly, I love and respect you because I learn a lot from you every time you come on my shows. But the one thing I'm going to stick to is that you and we happen to work a sector that has some certain exceptions to other sectors in the market. Some people aren't as experienced as we are, and some people don't have the luxury of being able to bargain for the time we get to take so much for granted. So this whole show and news update is but a wake-up call. We need to fight for what we earn, and we need to earn what we fought hard to get. We simply need to stand up to those who think we're worth less, and we need to stick to our standards. Couple more comments, and then we're gonna move on. I've had full control over my money and any business should. I fully agree. Yes, sir. I honestly have never ran into what you're saying over 26 years. Well, there are those that have. And again, all of the people in trucking don't all work for the same type of customer. There's a huge amount of customers out there, huge amount of contracts and situations. And I don't want people thinking that just because it's the same in one sector, it's the same in all. Trucking is different for everybody. You've been in at 26, I've been in at 15. Everybody watching has had a different broad spectrum of experience. But when it comes down to it, if you're watching this on the replay, do me a favor, go down below, take a moment, hit the like button, but leave me a comment about how complex you think it is to fight for the dime you think is necessary so that you can make a living out here on the road. Because honestly, when it comes down to it, every job you do, every mile you run should be well paid for and well compensated for. And I think everybody out here should actually start speaking up about it. Trucking is a dumpster fire. Nobody should do this. Well, for every dumpster fire, there's a fire department somewhere looking for a job. So, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just another story about trucking. It's a story about respect. Washington can run its experiments, and they can continue to do all the stuff they do day in and day out. But we're done being the lab rats. The working man's sweat built this nation, and it deserves more than just a study. This show, go down below, become a subscriber, join us in our fight, become a member of our TIB Nation, do your part, be a part of the voice that refuses to be silent. Because I've said before, silence is our enemy, and we mean business. I'm BossMan, fighting for truth in broadcasting. Till next time, keep it rolling.